This is Jordan Poyer, safety for the Buffalo Bills. You are now listening to Cover One Buffalo podcast. Let's go.
All right, welcome. We got Greg Tompsett of Cover One Buffalo and Joe Marino of Locked On Bills checking out the joint practices here at Buffalo and Carolina. Joe, how we doing?
Good, man. Anytime you get a chance to see the Bills on a football field right in front of your eyes, it's a good time. Certainly enjoy taking in this practice.
Absolutely. We had a really good time today. The most important part, there were no injuries from the Bills, but we're able to come out here, take a look at what was going on. Obviously, the first name that comes up anytime we're talking about the Bills is Josh Allen. Looked really, really good today.
Yeah, I really appreciate how decisive he was with the football today. And one thing that I mentioned when reflecting back on the Colts preseason game is that he went to the right spots with the football. He did it confidently, and there was no nonsense, right? He was in rhythm, and I thought that was, again, what we saw on the football field here today. A few throws maybe he'd like to have back, just a little bit too much air on some of the throws down the field, but just I feel like he's seeing the field better. It's coming a little bit slower, and we're not seeing that crazy off-script Josh Allen or even the flutter balls. Just everything was pretty clean, and that's what you want to say about your quarterback in practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Just in rhythm, decisive. You could tell that Dable and Dorsey were in his ear about being on schedule, just getting the ball out, 1, 2, 3 out. And granted, when he gets into the game, his natural abilities are going to allow him to ad-lib, but being able to focus on that and rep that here in practice is important. And we saw a couple guys look good catching the ball on the other end. I thought that you noticed Ray McLeod was looking solid. Yeah,
Ray McLeod really clean with his hands. I thought he confidently caught the football, handled some footballs thrown at him with pace in tight areas, right? And he did a nice job adjusting to the football and really getting it and working up the field. And so I had some concerns about his ball handling. Not today. He looked really clean.
Yeah. Another one, Cole Beasley. It's unbelievable how noticeable his ability to separate is. Like seeing it in person, and that he comes out. You were talking about as the guys were running their individual one-on-one reps where the stem is, and not giving anything away. And then when they go to break out of the top of that, that's where the cornerback has to make his decision. When Cole Beasley does that, he immediately gets 2 or 3 yards of separation. And it's just unbelievable how noticeable it is. And I think we saw Josh go to him 6 or 7 times.
And he accelerates to the football, right? So that enhances your ability to separate. When you go attack the football, you don't wait for it. And he's a very polished slot receiver.
Yeah, another one, Andre Roberts, you noticed.
Yeah, you know what? I think maybe the perception with Roberts coming in is this is the punt returner, kick returner. No, dude. When this team's going 3-4 wide receivers, you're almost always seeing Andre Roberts and running routes vertically as well as in space and some of the shorter stuff. So get ready for Andre Roberts to command a big role in this offense.
I agree, and it's not something where that takes away from the fact that the primary reason he's here. He's still going to be that all-pro level punt returner, kick returner, but that versatility where you're not taking up a roster spot as only a specialist, he is absolutely a part of this offense. And, part of maybe what we saw last year in some of those gadget plays from Isaiah McKenzie, maybe some jet sweeps, maybe some quick screens, having that kind of versatility as well as running the full route tree.
We saw a sideline catch down the field over here. He was targeted on a deep bomb on the left side, so he's lining up everywhere and he's running routes to all levels. He's going to have a role.
Yeah, I agree. Another important area that we looked at was the offensive line, and there's been a lot of discussion on how they're going to go about doing this, but it started out the same that we've seen. You had Deion Dawkins, Quentin Spain, John Feliciano, you had Cody Ford at right guard, you had Ty Nsekhe at right tackle, but we were concerned, okay, what does that mean from a swing tackle standpoint? Who's the backup? It was very key that they were automatically repping and bringing guys in where they would practice with the first unit they'd run 2 plays and all the rest of the guys stayed there. Spencer Long comes in at center, Feliciano kicks out at guard, Ford kicks out to tackle, and even though that's not ideal for Ford's long-term stability, they're repping it and getting that into their habits so that it's not foreign if it happens in the game.
Yeah, and it's time to tinker, right? This is the time of year we haven't even gotten to the second preseason game. You want to see guys in different spots and know how it works and if they can fill those roles. And so while you still have time without a regular season game on Sunday, you can tinker around and mess around with that. One other note here is we talk about the musical chairs on the right side. It ain't happening on the left side. Deion Dawkins is your left tackle. Quentin Spain's your left guard. And then once Mitch Morse is back here at center, you're going to see a very stable foundation there left to right.
And I know it's kind of hard to identify how much it played into a factor. You had some Deion Dawkins apologists who said, well, he lost incognito, so of course that was a huge part. And then he's still obligated to be his own man and do his own role. But having an experienced veteran guard who can genuinely do his job, I think whether that's a huge impact or just a peripheral benefit, I think it's a good thing for Deion Dawkins.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And Quentin Spain has been a starter since he's walked into the NFL. And so there it is right now. They're not messing with that. They want Dawkins next to a guy. And so maybe that does speak to that idea that, hey, he went from Richie to this musical chairs of 3 different players next to him in 2018, and he regressed.
Yeah. So one other area, got to give you a little bit of shine, a player that was brought in a trade recently from the Eagles that a lot of fans assumed was just going to be a swing tackle. A certain scouting report happened to mention that he may have a future in the NFL as a center. We saw somebody else taking some snaps today.
Yeah, Ryan Bates, right? He got a chance to play interior at center and taking some snaps. And you know, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think it was easy to identify his traits. He's a narrow build, he's got shorter arms, and say this isn't a player that's going to live full time on the outside. And so you give him a chance to play center where he's got physicality and movement, and he's got a lot of experience coming into the league, but not necessarily profiling as an outside player. And what this does is we go back to Jeremiah Searles, who maybe it was low key when he got hurt and isn't part of the mix anymore, but his ability to play 5 positions was very valuable. And I think that Ryan Bates potentially claiming a role like that and is certainly increasing his value to not only the Bills but to the rest of the league, that hey, I can do everything, is a good thing. And it's the right time of year, like we talked about a moment ago, of tinkering around, letting guys play in different spots and seeing what they can do.
Absolutely, and I think most fans and most people plugged into the team wouldn't make the argument that a Ryan Bates caliber player is better at any one spot than say Wyatt Teller is at guard.
Right.
But if Ryan Bates has the ability to play all 5 spots, all of a sudden that gives Bobby Johnson and Dable the versatility when you're looking at who's a practice squad guy, who's making the 53, who's the game day 46, where if you know, hey, if something goes wrong with a second injury, we don't have a contingency plan there, you now have a guy that you can plug in at any of those 5 spots. That's a key piece for him that maybe he carves out a role there.
It's challenging. We did the 53-man roster projection on Monday, and we sweated through that offensive line discussion about if Ryan Bates can play all 5 spots, we're going to keep sweating. Because hopefully these guys stay healthy, and this becomes a very difficult decision for Bobby Johnson and Sean McDermott. But at least there's something interesting happening instead of injury after injury with offensive line.
Yes, yeah, and again, I mentioned at the top of the show, anytime you're in preseason, anytime you're in training camp, the biggest thing is no injuries. Please, no injuries. So being able to have that kind of turnout today, look to be pretty clean from everything, and then being able to go through and show a clean ending to the day. I think we might have saw one scuffle with the Bills defense and the offense. It was pretty clean beyond that, but just a good, healthy day from both teams, and that's what we were coming out here to see.
One last note, we got to talk about Mitch Morse.
Yes,
who was in the red jersey today. He's dressed, and after practice, he must have done 15, 20 cross-field sprints. I mean, they might still be out there doing them. So you like to see him getting back in shape, getting the movement there, and being part of what's going on out here, because we know the impact that he can make as a center for this football team, and it seems like he's getting closer and closer to being part of the mix.
Absolutely, and I know a lot of fans may not be familiar with how the concussion protocol works, and there's certain stages where you're only allowed to do set elements of physical activity, and getting to the point where he's in thigh pads and knee pads, he had a helmet on, he had a jersey on, it's a red non-contact jersey, but that's a huge step forward. They were doing drills where they're firing out of their stance, doing pulls. He was going with full exertion, a full sprint there, and then at the end, as Joe mentioned, they were full gassers. I mean, at a full sprint, that's something that the medical staff is not going to allow him to do unless he's at that clearance point. So I want fans to be careful. That doesn't mean that we're going to see him in a game. He's not going to play this Friday against the Panthers. I don't even know if we see him in the 3rd preseason game against the Lions, but this is a huge step forward and should be a very reassuring element for the coaching staff and for Bills Mafia to understand. It looks like we're going to have this guy back. We got to cross our fingers long term, but it looks like he's working his way back to get back in the lineup.
Yeah, need it, and I'm hoping tomorrow we can start having some more defensive takeaways. Yeah, the way things are kind of set up here, you're pretty much looking at one field, and today was the field we were able to get eyes on was offense, so maybe tomorrow we can get some more defensive takeaways.
Love it. Thank you guys for joining us today. Had a quick recap here, but had a great time today. It was great to meet you in person, Joe. Looking forward to it. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.